Greetings, everyone. This current series of videos seeks to unpack both the Easter resurrection reality of Jesus and some of the layers of the meaning of the delegation of Indigenous and bishops to Rome in the light of an upcoming papal journey to Canada. It struck me that the readings during this Easter week are all about table fellowship. Jesus eats a broiled fish. Jesus makes himself known by blessing bread at the Emmaus Inn. Jesus invites the apostles to come and have breakfast by the Lake of Tiberias. And then he upbraided the 11 themselves in the Gospel of Mark while they were sitting at table. So the request by former Assembly of First Nations Chief Phil Fontaine to break bread with the Oblates, once again, as he did when he met with Pope Benedict years ago, fit right into this context of table fellowship. Due to COVID restrictions, this supper at the General House would have to be much smaller than the first visit, which took place in the main dining room with the whole Oblate community and the Assembly of First Nations immediate presence. Provincial Ken Thorson helped out by communicating with the Superior General, Louis Logan, who was away attending a European Oblate gathering in Florence. Louis agreed to return for a possible supper and to meet with some of the delegates the following day. So we gathered Phil Fontaine and his wife Catherine, his longtime friend and associate Ken Young, Chief Willie Littlechild and his wife Helen, Archbishop Albert Legat from St. Boniface, who was already at the house, staying at the Oblate House, along with Father Francois Paradis and Lisa Raven, who's CEO of Returning to Spirit, as well as Father Susai Jesu and me. Then Archbishop Richard Gagnon of Winnipeg and Archbishop Richard Smith of Edmonton, both former presidents of the CCCB, came along with Gary Gagnon, the Métis rep from Edmonton. We were now up to a maximum of 15, including Superior General Louis Logan and the Warren Brown, the Counselor for North America. Besides the good food, the richness of the evening took the shape of the sharing that happened. Kathleen mentioned this was an incredible historical moment that the world is watching, and she sees a beginning of change towards reconciliation, and that this dinner was for her an experience of that renewed relationship. Archbishop Richard Gagnon shared an image from Oblate Bishop Tony Krotke's homily at Assisi earlier that day or the day before, breaking down what a skidoo. You have a choice to stay where you are and perish or walk together and survive. And this delegation, he saw, was a choice to walk together towards healing and reconciliation. Archbishop Richard Smith spoke and mentioned our fractured world is looking for signs of hope and genuine reconciliation. And he was in awe at how the Indigenous are leading this process, and he's learning a lot from them. The Indigenous are not afraid to share their brokenness and woundedness and need for healing. Truth is being told in the context of a very respectful listening. And he himself personally was experiencing that challenge to be reconciled with oneself. Saw this as something applying to all of us. And for him, this whole process is a beacon of hope in the spirit of Waitascoin, which means good relationships. And Gary Gagnon shared how the Indigenous people have always had a sense of synodality, of togetherness, of community. And the hug he elicited from the Pope during their visit, the visit of the Métis, was symbolic of healing and reconciliation for him, in the sense of wikohtuin, which means relationships or even our relations, and with faith in God being our commonality. And then Louis Logan, shared from the heart how we as Oblates are humbled and honored to journey with the Indigenous towards a better world within a respectful process of building relationships. While lamenting that he had not personally heard many of the stories, he had the opportunity to listen to Ted Fontaine, a relative of Phil Fontaine's actually, share some of his hurt one time when he was in Winnipeg, and expressed feeling shame and sorrow and disappointment at how we as Oblates started out well, close to the people, but lost our way somehow and became abusive and more clerical and hurtful, with cases of sexual abuse surfacing all over Europe now. This is our brokenness, for which we need healing as well. The painful truth needs to be told and revealed, and our guilt acknowledged and admitted, if we are to journey together in solidarity towards forgiveness and healing, which he pointed out was the hope of the 1991 Oblate Apology. This communion and solidarity that we were experiencing is kind of a hope for a new day towards being the Fratelli Tutti Pope Francis writes about. Phil Fontaine then expressed gratitude and appreciation to Archbishop Gagnon that his cousin Stan had been reinstated as a priest in the Archdiocese of Winnipeg. And he was grateful from the heart for the goodwill and kindness and generosity of the Oblates, which reminded him of his first banquet here, when William Whitney, one of the delegates, responded to then Superior General Richard Steckling in German, his hope in that spirit that we can fix what is wrong. Chief Willie mentioned a unifying thread in the over 7,000 stories that the commissioners heard from the TRC was the desire to hear three words from the Pope: I am sorry. And he thinks there is a void even after the government apology in 2008, which would be the lack of an opportunity to publicly and formally forgive, which is part of a healing journey. So something for us to think about. But he's very grateful for that encounter, that supper, which to him was an expression of that forgiveness. 68 countries apparently were watching the TRC unfold on a daily basis. He thinks over 100 countries will be watching this event, this visit of the delegation. And his community expresses a desire, Musquachis, to have a full-time oblate ministry to them once again, a ministry that began in 1874. Well, given the size and limit of the gathering, the generosity of the Oblate House and Father Avril made possible a second meal the next evening with Cindy Woodhouse, regional Manitoba chief for the Assembly First Nations, and her husband and an assistant. She is a close friend of Blaine Fable, the former chief of Palmmaker and FSI chief who sent me to Rome in the first place and wanted me to connect with her and invite her to the General House. So she was able to come, and after meeting with Father Susai, they were joined by Archbishop Albert Legat, Father Francois, and Lisa Raven. They had just finished giving a pipe ceremony with the community and gave her an opportunity to connect with facilitators of the Returning to Spirit process, which she had taken years earlier, and then to share with the Oblate community her aspirations and challenges as a regional chief. Now, with these breaking bread experiences at the Oblate General House, as part of the delegation's visit to Rome, the challenge shifts to preparing for the visit of Pope Francis to Canada, and how we can strive to involve the whole Canadian Church into walking together towards greater truth, healing, justice, and reconciliation. The listening that Pope Francis demonstrated for us can encourage us all to do what we can to listen to the painful truth of the Indigenous peoples, to become more trauma-informed ourselves, and aware of our own brokenness, painful emotions, and negative attitudes as a way of preparing the soil for that other upcoming incredible historical moment.